ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. Awesome. Who would like to get us started with this topic? The physical body is mithya.
I can start.
Go ahead, Anita ji.
I can read. Oh, sorry.
When you say the physical body is mithya, when you say this is the body, what is it exactly? Is it the skeletal structure, the skin, the flesh, the marrow, the blood, a given cell, or the DNA? There is no one thing that we call body. All of this put together is the body. You can look at it in many different ways. You can look at it biologically or simply from the standpoint of being nothing but minerals, calcium, phosphorus, and so on. Because each component depends upon so many other things, the physical body is mithya. Or if you take the body as a whole, it depends upon the 5 elements according to the model in Vedanta. However you look at it, the body is mithya.
Sorry. Yeah.
The physical body is a product created at a given time and is subject to modification. Because it has been created, it has an end, Antavat. Krishna pointing out all the bodies standing before them, including his own, described them as Antavanta. To whom do these bodies belong? The body, Sharira, is given existence and consciousness by Atma alone. Sattvastu lends its existence equally to the physical body, Stula Sharira, and to the subtle body, Sukshma Sharira, because the subtle body can reflect consciousness and the body is conscious. Therefore, the Sharira belongs to and has its being in Atma, which is the indwelled of the body. 2 words were used with reference to the physical body in this verse. Deha, imdeha, which is plural, and Sharira, nityasya Sharira, which is singular. Nitya means eternal, that which is not subject to change. The one who indwells this body as Atma, the meaning of the word I. Because there is only one Atma, the singular Sharira is used. Whereas with reference to all these bodies that undergo change and come to an end, the plural Deha is used. Who can be destroyed? In one stroke, 3 facts have been conveyed here. One is that the bodies are many and Atma is one. Secondly, Atma does not come to an end and is behind every Sharira. Thirdly, Atma cannot be destroyed. This being so, whom can you kill? You can only kill something that is subject to destruction. The destructible alone is destroyed. The one that cannot be destroyed is the real person. You, he or she, the I, the Atma that is always there.
We are here.
Therefore, do what is to be done. Fight. Yudhisthira, Krishna told Arjuna. What Arjuna had to do at the time was to protect the Dharma by fighting this war. A war was at hand and he had to fight because this was his Dharma as a Kshatriya. There are 2 types of destruction, Nasa. One is destruction in a relative sense. He is destroyed because she walked out on him. This is not real destruction. It is figuratively used here. A person who has terminal cancer is destroyed more or less. Although the final rites may not yet have been done, we say the person is finished, his life is over. Then when it is literally over, when the person died, there is another type of destruction. We have thus total destruction and relative destruction. Similarly, there are 2 types of eternity, relative and absolute. In order to point out that which always is and is never destroyed at all, 2 words are used in this verse, Nitya and Anasi. Both words mean that which is absolutely free from any form of change or death, and therefore absolutely free from time, timeless. There's always another adjective used here, aprameya, Prameya means that which is to be known, that which can be known. The knower, Paramatma, gains the knowledge, prama, of an object, prameya through a means of knowledge, pramana. Atma is said here to be aprameya, something that is not an object to be known. Any aprameya, anything that is seen by you, any object that is available for your pramana as an object, trishya, is non-eternal, anitya. Why? Because anything that is seen is within the time-space framework alone and is therefore anitya. You cannot say a part, for example, is drishya and also nitya. To say that something is drishya seen means that it is changing every second. It is never the same because it is within time, and time is an element which keeps on affecting change. Any object, therefore, is never the same. It is always different. What is available for you to know is therefore always anitya and never nitya. Because Atma is not available as an object of knowledge, it is aprameya. But if Atma is not an object of knowledge, why are you doing all this study? What is the Gita Shastra for if not for knowing Atma?
Awesome. We'll pause here for a minute and then we'll proceed. Two important concepts, I think three important concepts that were taught. So I'll just go into the previous page first. So here we are learning, so here where it says two words have been used in reference in this sloka. Dehaha, ime dehaha is antavanta ime dehaha, if you go back to the sloka 18, which is dehaha is a plural word, which means these dehas, the bodies. And shariri is the one, nityasya sharirinaha is the term that is used in the shloka, which is in singular. What we are saying is, though there we say there is the Paramatman and therefore there is Jivatman, and there are multiple Jivas and therefore there are multiple Jivatmas. If you see from one context, that's absolutely right. But the Jivatma is non-different between, like, my Jivatma and your Jivatma cannot have different properties and different characteristics or different attributes. The attributes remain the same. Therefore, the material, or what is the consciousness that is the Jivatma, is the same across all the bodies. Therefore, you can say this is one consciousness. And related to the example of electricity or clay or gold that we've been looking at. So the material behind the consciousness that exists to become the Atman is exactly the same across all of us. Therefore, it is utilized in, it is used in singular. So that's one important concept that we need to understand. The second one is why there is no nasha, right? So if I go to the next page, we were talking about anything that is within the time and space framework, then because the time is moving and the space is continuously growing, so there is a change, and asti jayate viparinamate, so there is growth, there is, like, death, and there is birth, and all of those changes that are happening continuously. Therefore, what you see now, in the next moment, that thing has changed because it has grown 1 second older than what it was before. In which case, what are we then talking about? This consciousness, the Atma, is Nitya. It is not Anitya. It is not time bound or space bound. It is beyond time and space. Therefore, it is Nitya. So here we, Swamiji inserted this Prameya, Pramata, and Pramad. So there are four definitions that are being used here. So we'll just quickly look at those. We've previously looked at these in the context of Gita when we started originally studying Gita. Pramata is the person that is trying to know about something. Okay, let's think about know about Atman. So Pramata is the person that is trying to know. And what is he trying to, what is the object of the knowledge, what is it trying to know about? That is prama. And sorry, what am I saying? Sorry. Gains, yeah, prama is the knowledge itself about the Atman, and prameya is the object, the Atman, and the knowledge is called as the pramana. And here we talked about pramana, various forms of pramana, like, we said Shastra Pramanam, and there are many different, we've seen a flow chart in those days. So if you want to refer back to that, you will see that in context of Gita. The most important thing then we are talking about is, so as a subject, as somebody who wants to know, I am the pramata, I want to know about this book, for example, that's sitting in front of me. Then the object is prameya. What am I trying to get is the knowledge, which is the prama, or sorry, and the means of getting this knowledge is the pramana. And this would be possible, these four things would be possible as long as there is a book in front of me which is different than me. So I am here, the book is there, so there are two different things, and therefore I can learn about it. What we are trying to learn through Shastra is about ourselves. So the subject and object of knowledge is one and the same. So me as a jiva in this body, I can call that me, is trying to learn about the Jivatman in me. And through the Jivatman, through understanding of the Jivatman, I will get better understanding of the Paramatman and the unison between the Paramatman and Jivatman, because unless he is within me, I cannot be enlivened. So this is the Drik Drishya Vakya Viveka we have previously talked about, that that subject object indifference in what we are trying to learn about Atman. So that's explained here. So unless there are any questions, we'll move to the next topic. Okay.
Did you say prama is the knowledge itself?
Correct.
So, and pramana?
Prama means knowledge. Pramata is one who is seeking the knowledge. Prameya is the subject, or like the object of knowledge. What are you trying to seek knowledge about? And pramana is the means of getting that knowledge.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So somebody else wanted to read previously. Was it Sheshadriji or?
Yeah, I can read.
Please go ahead, Sheshadriji.
Thank you. The nature of perception. Here Shankara enters into a short discussion, which he picks up again in more detail elsewhere in the Gita. All these bodies are said to be anitya, subject to destruction, whereas Atma, the Sariri, who obtains in all bodies, is nitya. Atma is aprameya, not available as an object of knowledge. Anything subject to distinct understanding is called parichedya. There are three words used with reference to our understanding of a distinct object: parichedya, parichedaka, and paricheda. Parichedya means that which is subject to limitation. Parichedaka is what brings about this paricheda. Through the sense organs, you perceive objects. The eyes, for example, perceive the form and color of an object. Therefore, the sense organs all become parichedakas for varieties of parichedyas. Each of the sense objects, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell, is distinct from one another and therefore parichedya. The form that the eye sees is parichedya because it is perceived as distinct from all other things. Therefore, any pramana which picks up a distinct piece of knowledge becomes parichedaka, and what is picked up is parichedya. Any object of knowledge that can be known in the form of a cognition, such as this is a pot, this is a cloth, this is a tree, this is a man, this is a woman, is parichedya, because an object of knowledge is conditioned or limited in nature and perceived as such through the sense organs. Therefore, the sense organs become parichedakas and the objects are parichedyas. That which is not known in a determinate form as an object by all these pramanas is what is meant hereby. What is meant by?
Last line, the aprameya.
Meant by here is aprameya. So thank you. Do you want me to continue, Guruji?
Yes, please. Just if these 3 paragraphs, and we'll stop for a second.
Okay, thanks. Brahman is not one more object that you see like the pot or the tree. If Brahman is also parichedya, then it becomes one of the objects in the world and therefore becomes anitya. However, Brahman cannot be known by the prachaksadi pramanas, the various means of knowledge that are available to us, such as perception, inference, etc. The etc. Adi here includes words, sabda, meaning that the Veda is also a pramana. When the Veda is pramana, then heaven, swarga, for example, is prameya and therefore a parichedya. Knowledge gained by sabda pramana is again determinate knowledge. Because heaven is not hell, earth, or this or that, it is a distinct object. Thus, there is limitation. If heaven is mentioned by the Vedas, then it means that it is something which can be known distinctly. Similarly, when you say punya, it is not papa. It is not produced by wrong karma. It is produced by right karma. In this way, we understand what punya is and what it does purely by the sabda, the word. Therefore, shabda is also a pramana, a means of knowledge.
Awesome. We'll just pause here. There are quite a few Sanskrit words that have been thrown around, so we'll just pause and understand these in a more, meaningful manner. Aprameya is the word that we are trying to understand. Because if you go back to those previous definitions, we are talking about prameya is an object of knowledge. So I want to learn about the book that I was talking about previously. I want to learn about that book. So therefore, the book becomes a prameya. I want to learn about Ganga. Therefore, the river becomes a prameya. Here what we are saying, Brahman or Paramatman, Atman, give him all the names in the universe. He is aprameya. He is not an object. It is not possible to put him in a categorically in a context of like a particle or a thing or something and start learning about him. And why is that? Because he is, as previously we have seen, he is not bound by time and space continuum, and he is not limited by any constraints. And that's where we use the word parichedya. Aparichinnam is the other word that is the opposite of parichinnam. Aparichinnam is he is unlimited and he is not bound by any limitations. So therefore, it is very difficult to understand and put a wrap around, like a knowledge wrap around him and say, this is what he means, or this is what he looks like, or this is what he feels like. Because he is beyond all of these. And what are we trying to understand here is, whatever knowledge, all the pramanas, the means or instruments of knowledge, and here Swamiji reminded us of the types of pramanas. Again, in the past we have seen this in the flow chart. Pratyakshadi pramanas. Pratyaksham, I can see it in front of me, therefore I believe there is pratyaksham. Similarly, there is inference, there is Shabda Pramanam. Shabda Pramanam is the Vedas. And we are saying even Vedas cannot define him. He is beyond Vedas as well. But Vedas are the final, the ultimate, the only highest of the knowledge that's available to us. Therefore, we will use the Vedas to understand Brahman, but even Vedas cannot define him. And the example why even Vedas can define him, that's where this concept of pramana, Veda pramanam also gives us how to attain Swarga. And we will see in many of the Brahmanas, like the Taittiriya Brahmanam, we will see all the various rituals that get performed to attain Swarga. So if Swarga is also available to attain through Veda, then we are saying because even that is a limited by time and space, and it is something to be attained, even that is parichinnam, and we are talking about this aprameya, that aparichinna Brahman, and therefore he is even beyond Veda Brahmanam. Then we, at the end, then we will say, okay, then why are we studying Vedas to get him? So we will understand, like, from the next topics, I believe Swamiji will talk about it. What even Vedas talk about, or the Upanishads actually, towards the end, we've previously mentioned it. Vedas have 4 parts. The first part is called as Samhitas, which are eulogies to Bhagavan, and Brahmanas, various ways of the Karma Kanda, on how to do some rituals and homas and things like that will be part of the Brahmanas. Then we have Aranyakas, which are meditative upasana, mental meditative processes that are defined in that. And then Upanishads, which is where the definition, or at least trying to understand Brahman is given in those Upanishads. What Upanishads try to say is, he's not this, he's not this, he's not this, he's not this, and neti, neti, iti is what we say, right? So it only defines what Brahman is not. And therefore, after deducing all of those, whatever is left, that is Brahman, is how Upanishads define it. So even Shabda Pramanam is limited Pramanam, is what we are talking about. I hope those words now start making sense.
Shriji, can you please repeat the 4 divisions, Samhitas, Brahmanas?
Sure. Samhitas are the first ones. It has lots of stutis, eulogies for Bhagavan. Brahmanas are ritual karma kanda oriented. Then Aranyakas, supposed to be utilized in Vanaprastham, when people, like, almost retire and they just hand over their belongings, and the wife and husband go to a more remote place and start more of the meditative upasana oriented meditative processes in their lifestyle. That's Aranyakam. And then Upanishads are the 4th.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
I think, can I say just one word, Guruji, if you don't mind? Yeah, I guess, this aprameya is, it comes again and again in Vishnu Sahasranamam also.
Exactly.
So if we go there, aprameyo, Hrishikesho, Padmanabho, Maraprabha, I think that means, he's not measurable, I think, in that particular sense. So beyond measurable by these Panchabhutas that we are talking about, Shabda or vision or anything. Maybe that's what it is like. He is immeasurable, basically, isn't it?
No, Prameyam is, he is not an object of intelligence. He is immeasurable because he is not an object. So you can take it like, all of the Vishnu Sahasranamam, and I was actually saying even before when we were studying Vishnu Sahasranamam, 80% of the namas are the Nirguna Rupa Paramatman namas, right? And it's a beautiful way. They are all interconnected. You just take one nama and you try to define it, you actually go into a different nama in Vishnu Sahasranamam.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, so prameyam, actually in the Sanskrit meaning of prameyam, is an object of knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Aprameyam then would be, he cannot be an object of knowledge, in which means he cannot be attained through knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, actually, when we were reading it, that line and the Lalita Sahasranam Aprameya line, they were just going around in my head. Who would like to read the next topic?
I will.
Please go ahead.
Atma is not established by a pramana. If Atma cannot be known even Shabda, why? Then do you study the Gita Shastra? If it is not an object of knowledge for the Pratyakshadi Pramanas, how can Vedanta be a pramana for the Atma? Addressing this question, Shankara first says that Atma is not known by any pramana, including the Veda, because it is not an object of knowledge. Thinking that Atma could be known through this pramana, a person goes to a guru, does a lot of service, and at the end of it, the guru says, Atma is not known even through the Veda. Since the Guru teaches only the Veda, what is the use of all this? Naturally, such a person thinks it has all been a waste. He or she also thinks that Atma is understood perhaps through the Pratyakshadi Pramanas. Shankara refuted this notion here by saying that Atma is not known by the Pratyakshadi Pramanas, including the Veda. Before you listen to the Vedanta Shastra, Atma must be there. The existence of Atma is not established by a pramana like the Veda, nor can it be established by pratyaksha, perception, or anumana, inference. If the existence of Atma were to be established by any of the pramanas resulting in such knowledge as here is a pot, here is a table, here is the Swami sitting, etc., then we would be using perception, of course, but we would not be establishing the Atma behind the perception. Only when the knower is already established can there be an enquiry through a pramana. Vedanta, vichara, enquiry, can only be done when there is an Atma to enquire. If Vedanta were to establish the Atma, it would mean that until one inquired into Vedanta, Atma did not exist. It means you were not there. Who is it then that goes to Vedanta, which says that Atma is limitless? Moreover, who listens to this Vedanta? The Atma. The one who wants to know is the same as the one who can use any of the pramanas to inquire into what is to be known. Even before the pramanas are pressed into service for gathering such knowledge, there must be self-evident Atma. Therefore, the Veda does not establish Atma as it does any other existent thing like heaven, Swarga, and so on. A Swarga that is unknown to you is made known to you by the Shastra. You come to know of something called Punya that is said to be dormant in a karma that can be invoked through the Shastra alone. Thus, you find these unknown things discussed in the Shastra as potentially existent things. Similarly, there are many unknown things in the world that you come to know through the various pramanas, new disease, for example. Having come to know about it, you say the disease is. After discovering it, you look for its cause. Then, after finding the cause, you say the cause is, and the treatment for the causes. After treatment, you say the side effects are. Like this, with the help of pramanas, you keep on discovering things that exist but which were so far not known. Although Atma is not available as an object of knowledge, it is not totally unknown. In fact, Shankara says that Atma is not something unknown to anyone. It is always Swatha Siddha, self-evident, self-established. No one's Atma is unknown. Everyone's Atma is known. Only then is the operation of the pramanas possible. The Atma is not established by a pramana. It is Swatha Siddha.
Fantastic. So we'll just take a moment to pause here. So what we are saying then is, if Atma is Nitya, Atma is Aprameya, then it is the Atma that is inquiring into everything else, all the other Prameyas in the universe. Because if everything else is visible, and Brahman is the only one that cannot be measured, or that cannot be known by knowledge. Then what do we say? It's the 10th man story. I don't know if everybody knows the 10th man story. It's almost like the 10th man story. So I'll just say the story, even if you have heard it before. Just please be patient and re-listen to it. So there were 10 students who were going somewhere, and on the way they had to cross a river. And after they crossed the river was flowing with full vigor. So after they crossed the river, they wanted to make sure that all of them have crossed safely. So they started counting how many of them have made it on the other to the other bank. And each individual person that started counting did not count themselves. They were counting everybody else because they were visible to them. So they forgot to count themselves. And they started wailing because they were only counting 9 and they thought the 10th person drowned. So somebody else who was walking by that path came and asked why these men were crying. And so they told him, like, one of us has disappeared. We started as 10 people, now we are only 9. And that person, as an external person, has counted them all and said, of course, you are the 10th person. So that is what we use as an example for Tattvamasi. You are the one. So just like that 10th man who is not counting himself because he is not seeing himself in front of him, and he's counting everything else, the one that is counting all the other 9 is this Atman, that person that is able to see everything, that is able to visualize other objects. So in that sense, Atman is aprameya and is the one that is inquiring into all other prameyas. Did that make sense? Okay, assuming it did.
Yes.
Who would like,
Yes.
who would like to read the next topic?
I can read.
Go ahead, please.
The Shastra as Pramana. Then the problem would be, what about Shastra? If I already know the Atma, how can the Vedanta Shastra be a Pramana? Here Shankara says that Shastra is definitely a Pramana. How? Revealing the existence of Atma is not what establishes the Shastra as Pramana. But the Shastra has a status of Pramana because it removes the wrong notions I have about Atma. Atma by nature is Param Brahma, and that the Param Brahma is not known to us. The pramanas available to us are only good for knowing things other than ourselves. This Atma is already Svata Siddha, and it is the Svata Siddha Atma that is mistaken for a Jiva, a doer, Karta, an enjoyer, Bhokta, one who is happy one moment and sad the next, Sukhi and Dukhi. Then I am Jiva. I am a Jiva. An individual means that I am someone who is limited, as good as a body, etc. This is a natural conclusion of every Jiva because of ignorance or avidya. The status of being Jivatva has been superimposed upon the Atma. In other words, a seeking person is born of avidya. This is an error of self-identity which only the Shastra can resolve. One's own pramanas are of no use here. The Shastra does not prove the existence of the Atma, it only removes the confusion. For this reason, it has the status of being a pramana, that is, it has a pramanatva. It does not bring to your recognition the Atma as an object that is totally unknown, as it does for the other unknown things like heaven, for instance. When the Shastra says there is heaven, heaven as an unknown thing is brought to your understanding. You understand that there is such a thing as heaven. When the Shastra says that this particular ritual will produce this particular result, it is definitely bringing an unknown thing to your recognition. That this ritual has this efficacy is not known to you by any other pramana. Therefore, the Shastra has the status of being a pramana by bringing to your recognition something that is totally unknown to you and that cannot be known by you through any other pramana. When it comes to the Atma, the Shastra has pramanatva only in so far as it removes all superimpositions upon the Atma. Knowledge is nothing but the removal of ignorance. It cannot be a superimposition upon ignorance. If ignorance is not removed, there is no knowledge at all. Ignorance being opposed to knowledge, only the removal
We are here.
only the removal of ignorance is necessary. Ignorance of Atma is present and the Shastra has the capacity to remove it, meaning that it removes all the confusions centered on Atma. But Atma is self-evident, that is why there is confusion. The Atma is self-evident, but that it is limitless is not known. Hence, all the limitations of the body, mind, etc. are superimposed on it.
Awesome. We'll just take a quick second here.
Okay.
So I'm hoping this is much clearer. There are not many new words that have been introduced to us. So what we are saying then is, as we said, even Vedas, Bhagavan or Brahman, Param Brahman, give him whatever name you would like, is beyond even Veda Pramanam or Shabda Pramanam. And so how then is Veda Pramanam still the only thing that we have in order to understand him? Is because he is Svatasiddha. If Bhagavan has created the whole universe, he is existent in everything and anything, but we are superimposing, like, the Rajju Sarpa we were talking about, where we are taking a rope to be a snake because of ignorance. In the darkness, a rope on the road appears like a snake, and it causes fear, it causes anxiety. As soon as a knowledge, the lamp of knowledge is brought in front of it, we know that, oh, it's not a snake, it's a rope, and all fear disappears. It's not, we don't need anything else. It's just the knowledge of the reality of what it is that removes all the samsara. So similarly, what Veda does for us is to help us differentiate of when I say I, is it this body? Is it this sense organs? Is it this mind? Is it my intellect? And is it the Atman? So it actually gives us the clarity of differentiating between among all of these things that actually form the me that I think I am. Otherwise, until that moment, we've been focused on our sense organs. We've been trying to please our tongue. We've been trying to see what we like, and though, so we're just superimposing the Atman that is really me with this body mind sense complex and trying to please the senses. We've been wavering around and causing samsara to ourselves. So as we have seen in the past, nothing from outside can cause any samsara for us. It's how I perceive the universe or how I perceive the scenarios or things or people or places that I'm causing the samsara to myself. By just removing that, or it not removing, but clarifying the superimposition that is happening and clarifying who the real me is, all of these scenarios can play their role. They will happen around, but how we perceive them and how we react to them and what we get out of those reactions is going to be completely different. Does that make sense? Please stop us, and if we are going fast, otherwise we'll move to the next topic. Who would like to read this one? Ooh,
I can continue. I can continue.
please go ahead, Sheshadriji.
Okay. Atma is already known, but not as an object. If Atma were to be totally unknown, like heaven, you would not say that you are in a Sukhi or Dukhi or a Samsari. To say I am finished is possible only because you have control samsari. Therefore, the Atma, I, is already self-evident. However, it is taken for something other than what it is, and the Shastra makes necessary correction, thereby proving itself to be a pramana. Shankara quotes the Shastra saying that this Brahma Atma is self-evident, aparoksha. That which is self-evident is the Atma, Brahman, Atma Brahman, everything else becomes evident to the self. In this verse, Krishna says that all bodies are subject to destruction, whereas Atma, the indweller of the body, is not subject to destruction because it is a subject, not an object, aprameya. This is the point here. Any object is subject to destruction, whereas Atma, not being an object, is nitya. Anything aprameya is nitya, and only one thing is aprameya, the Svatasiddha Atma. Therefore, Atma is not subject to time and thus not subject to destruction. Krishna concluded by saying, therefore fight Arjuna, tasmat yuddhasva bharata. What? There is nothing for you to be sad about. Things that die, die. Things that are dying, die. Things that remain permanent, remain permanent. If Arjuna wanted to destroy Bhishma's Atma, he could not. To stop, okay, body from he could not. Either way, Arjuna could not do anything. Therefore, what is to be done is to be done. Shankara says here that Krishna was not giving Arjuna an order to fight. That is not the point here. The meaning here was do not entertain the idea of withdrawing from this battlefield. What is the difference between this statement and an order to fight? There is difference, Shankara says. This was not a command that one should actually fight. If it was not a command, then was it a request? No, Arjuna was already prepared to fight. He had come with his entire armory, but then found himself obstructed by sorrow and delusion. He was soka mocha pratibadha. That is why he became silent. He could not proceed because he was completely paralyzed psychologically and emotionally for various reasons. Therefore, he was no longer interested in fighting and turned his attention to something else. All that Bhagavan was doing all that I'm sorry, it's okay. All that Bhagavan was doing here was removing the sorrow and delusion that were the obstructions, pratibandhas. Afterwards, if the fighting was to be done, then it was to be done. Therefore, Yudhyasva was not a command. It was only asking Arjuna to do what was to be done. It was only a restatement of what he was planning to do. Bhagavan does not ask people to fight each other. Gita Shastra, Shankara states, is not a pravriti Shastra like Karma Kanda, which enjoins people to perform various rituals and other actions. It is a Nivritti Shastra, Moksha Shastra. To have asked Arjuna to fight would have been a Pravriti Shastra, whereas Nivritti here is the removal of the cause of samsara, sorrow, and delusion, which is ignorance. Do you want me to?
I'm hoping somebody else can take over. So today seems to be a very silent group, unless maybe we could have them some discussion.
Yeah. I can read.
Okay, go ahead, Ratnaji.
Removing the obstacles of knowledge. The Gita Shastra is meant to remove the ignorance, which is the cause for samsara, consisting of soka and moha. This should be understood well. It was sorrow and delusion that clouded Arjuna's mind, and for that alone, the Gita Shastra was given by the Lord. Therefore, Krishna was not asking Arjuna to fight. Arjuna was already fighting. He was simply saying that Arjuna should do what was to be done. In other words, he was saying, don't give me these kinds of arguments in order not to fight. Suppose someone were to say, I will not take care of my child because it takes so much time to take care of a child. It consumes too much of my personal life. I want to pursue Atma, and to take care of this child will take 17 years, perhaps longer. I cannot wait for moksha. If such a person were to go to Krishna, and Krishna happened to teach the Gita, he or she would be told, take care of your child. Or if a man were to tell Krishna that he wanted to get rid of his wife so that he could become a sannyasi, or that he wanted to become a sannyasi in order to get rid of her, he would be told not to use sannyasa for this purpose. There are smaller solutions available. And if this man thinks that by getting rid of his wife, he will become a sannyasi, Krishna would say, I'm sorry, such an idea is quite useless. It will not work. You had better take care of your wife. Arjuna had been talking to Krishna, and they happened to be in the battlefield. Therefore, the expressions like fight and get up are only contextual. Krishna was not interested in a battle as such. He was only interested in dharma. He was not interested in engaging anyone in a fight. We should not think, the Gita says that I should fight, therefore I'm going to fight it out. That's not what was said here. That the situation may amount to a fight in one thing, but removing sorrow is the real issue. There are some points in the Gita, like this one, that are important to understand well, because they are areas where people often misunderstand the intended meaning.
Awesome. So a trivia question, can you, I think we've also spoken about this, discussed this in the context of Gita. There was one person who held Gita in his hand and did mass destruction, caused mass destruction. Does anybody remember that context?
Oppenheimer, right?
Yeah, Oppenheimer when he was
Dropping
dropping
the
the
atomic bomb.
atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during the World War. He had Gita in his hand, and he was thinking that is dharma, that is what he was ordained to do. So those are the kind of misunderstandings that should not happen. Bhagwan is not asking for, okay, go get up and fight with your family, fight with your employer or other people. He's saying, do your duty. First comes dharma, then comes our artha and kama, and then comes. So even in that like the list of dharma, artha, kama, moksha, there is so much in it. Moksha being, of course, the most important of the purusharthas. It is at the end. First, do your dharma, then make sure that you have a secure life, do or get all the securities you need. Then you utilize that for entertainment, and all of that as the kama. But know that moksha is the final destination. Okay, any thoughts, any discussions before we move forward?
Sriji, I feel like we covered a lot today and everything made sense, but the first few words like prameya, I mean, aprameya understood, but pramana and all that, can we refresh that again? I felt it's a little
Absolutely.
confusing.
Yeah, I know there were quite a few Sanskrit words. And somebody actually asked me if there was like a Vedantic dictionary that they could refer to. So I thought I did not send it. So I will write that down as a homework for myself. One more time, I forgot. I will do that. So let's just go to that part. So, and we'll also come to the Paricheda and Aparichinna. So think about these as 4 things. And we will only use the English words, and then we will put the Sanskrit words at a later time. Just for understanding, we'll use the English words. So if I want to learn about, and for some reason Ganga comes to my mind very often when I talk about these, so I'll use Ganga. If I want to learn about Ganga, I am the knower. I'm the one that is trying to know, therefore I am the knower. And I want to know about Ganga. So Ganga is the to be known. And what I will get is the knowledge about Ganga. And how will I learn about Ganga? By referring to a book about Ganga. So let's assume this kind of scenario. So in this case, as the knower, I am the pramata, is the Sanskrit word for somebody who is trying to know about something. Ganga is the prameya. I want to know about Ganga. And what am I going to get? Prama about Ganga, the knowledge of Ganga is what I'm trying to achieve. And what is my means of getting that knowledge? That book about Ganga is the pramana. So what we are saying is, in general terms, generally when we want to learn about something, whether it is physics, I want to learn calculus, I want to learn something else, any knowledge that we try to achieve other than the Atma Jnanam, we have these 4 things. There is somebody who wants to know, there is something that he wants to know about, and he uses some tools or instruments to get that knowledge. And once he gets that knowledge is called as the Prama. In the case of Atma Jnanam, yes, we need a pramana, which is the Shastra Pramana, Shabda Pramana that we were talking about. But even that Shabda Pramana is not able to fully define Paramatman because he's beyond the scope of description or definition. But that is the ultimate knowledge that is available to us. So that is the maximum that we can reach in terms of the number of pramanas that are available to us. So we will utilize that. And from there is a lot more contemplation and nididhyasanam that needs to be performed in order to understand him. So that's one part. Then we want to, so I, as the pramata, I'm trying to understand about Atma. Let's assume Atma to be Prameya. But after all of this knowledge that I get, the Prama about Atman, what Veda tells me is I am nothing but him. If he is the one that created the whole universe and he is the one enlivening me as the Atman, just like the charioteer analogy, in the Gita, the chariot analogy, as Bhagavan Krishna is the one that is actually running the life of the chariot of life. In that case, he is not different from me, or I am not different from him. Therefore, the Pramata and Prameya are the same. The subject and object of knowledge are exactly the same. So after doing all of this research and all of the study, the Veda Pramanam we will say Tattvamasi, because the one living in you is the one that you're looking for. So it is not outside knowledge, it's inwards. And again, going back to whether it is Lalita Sahasranamam or Vishnu Sahasranamam or Shiva Sahasranamam or any Sahasranamam, they will say Antarmukha Samaradhya Bahirmukha Sudurlabha. You can just look outside for as long as you want, but ultimately you will only understand that all of what you see has been created from the one that is the Pundarikaksha, the one that is living in this body. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense, but also it also said Atma cannot be an object, right? Because it's a
Correct.
subject. So how can Atma be Prameya?
So I use the word Prameya. So Atma, as we have just seen, is Aprameya. He cannot be an object because ultimately there is no difference between the subject and the object. I would, as you know, when I start this discussion or when I start thinking about, I want to get Atma Jnanam, I'm thinking just like I study science, I study mathematics. I think I'm studying to learn about Atman. So there is me at point A, and I have to go towards point B to understand Atman that is at point B. But ultimately, when I get the knowledge, what am I learning is point A is where Atman is too. So I am traveling from point A to point B only to come back to point A to say this is here. So there is no difference between Pramata and Prameya because Atman is Aprameya. Make sense?
Yes.
Sriji, can I say a few words?
Please, of course.
Okay, so there was the paragraph about why should I study this, or ultimately after going to the Guru and you have come across all the information, but Atma is just not present in that, and so on. So you used the word math and some other subjects, just like we read, and what came to my mind, because it's been a long time doing math, but a complex equation, when you want to solve, you have to know all of the above in order to say, okay, this is not it, or check 1, 2, 3, all that. And so suppose you assume an equation to be, let's say Atman is Prameya, then you keep solving the problem towards the end, because it cannot be defined by it, you would get an answer infinity.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly. Very well put. Okay.
And
So,
Shriji, can you also explain the Paricheda, the Parichedaka, and the Parichedya, and
yeah.
all those things again?
Yeah. Sounds good. So let's go to that.
Please.
Yeah, I know. So paricheda means something that is limited, subject to limitation, especially subject to limitation by time and space. That is the word, the definition of, or vyutpat. It's not even, it's the translation of the word paricheda. What we are saying is aparichinna is what we use for defining Brahman. He is not somebody that can be conditioned or limited in nature, or subject to any limitations, including the limitations of time and space. When Brahman started manifesting himself into a universe, that's when time started ticking, that's when space started forming. when in the pralaya kalam, when the whole universe starts becoming unmanifesting into the God's particle, the one single ekameva dvitiyam, so to that particle, then the space and time are constricting, just like where they call it the elastic rubber band, right? Like, just expands and then just starts coming back. So currently, if you watch any of the documentaries, we hear that the universe is still expanding. It is not anywhere close to coming backwards, but they know that in the future it'll constrict back. It has to come back, which is what we call as the pralaya. So in this, the aparichinnam is what defines Bhagavan, because he is not subject to any limitations, including that of time and space.
Okay. So
What is the
what?
word you use for who what cannot be described?
What cannot be
You
described?
said earlier, like when we were reading, that that word means that you cannot describe that, like God or the form or Paramatma. Was there a word for it?
Oh, there are so many namas. I'm just trying to recollect. There will be so many of them.
Earlier in this, when we were reading, you used that word. That's why.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I thought it is Nirguna. Is that what you are asking?
No, Nirguna would be the one that is beyond the gunas, the sattva, rajas, tamas.
Is it Ameya?
Was it Parichinnam?
Parichinnam is subject to limitations of time and space. Anything subject to any limitation is parichinna. Or aparichinna, somebody who is not subject to limitations. So nirakara. So actually there is a whole...
Aprameya. Atma is aprameya. It says.
Aprameya is, there is, you cannot... he's not an object of knowledge.
Yeah,
He's
there is no
aprameya.
form. He is not no form. Is that what it means, right? He has no form.
No form would be nirakara.
Oh, Nirakara. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is pratyakshadi pramanas again?
So number of pramanas, number of types of knowledge that are available to us,
Okay.
the
Okay.
instruments of knowledge, whether
Yeah,
it is
that's
like,
the four you gave, right?
correct,
Earlier?
pratyaksham,
Perfect.
inference, and analogies and all of that.
Okay.
So we can say, as this thing, any amount of knowledge that you think you are gaining by reading the Vedas or whatever it is really not going to get to your Atma. Atma is finally knowledge of yours,
Correct.
right? That's the main gist of the whole thing that we have been reading today.
Correct. The one who is driving us towards studying Gita, and I don't know how many times Swamiji would have told us, you could be utilizing this time to be watching a movie, being at a party, or eating something, doing so many other things, but you're here listening to this, boring Vedanta, he used to say. And that's because the inner urge for the Atman to realize himself. That's why it's called as self-realization. I'm realizing about myself. This is the only knowledge that is inward about me, versus every other piece of knowledge available to us is external.
External, yes.
I'm learning about something outside of me, and this is the only knowledge that will drive me towards myself and to go inwards. And then that's when the Pancha Kosha philosophy comes, right? Like, as we are crossing each of the koshas within us, we'll go beyond the Anandamaya Kosha.
Sriji, the description of Atman is that the word we are looking for, it's not avyaktam, is it? Avyaktoyam, achintyoyam, is that relevant here or?
Avyakta is the unmanifested.
I think it's Ameya, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe it is Ameya. I actually, at some point out of the Vishnu Sahasranamam, I've taken like 108 names that I really, really felt they were descriptive of the Paramatman. All types of, and you will see Vishnu Sahasranamam has so many Atma Namas. If anybody has patience and wants to do a bit of research project, look for all the Atma Namas in Vishnu Sahasranamam. You could just do a quick Control F and see Atma and just find Nivrittatma, Paramatma. There's so many of those namas. So I just was looking for that document. Suddenly it is not occurring to me on what undescribable or indescribable is. There are so many words for it. So I'll just look it up, and I think I'll also post all of those. I just wanted like the 108 names for some reason. I did that research a few years ago. I'll post that as well, just for fun, so you can see all the different. And I did not translate them. You'll just see in the Sanskrit, but at some point I'll probably even put in the translation for it, just for fun.
Sri Deviji, that is, you said in the Vishnu Sahasranamam, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shriji, is it Nirdeshya Vapu Shriman?
Nirdeshya is a little different.
Okay.
Yeah. And Ameya is also immeasurable. But again, like, many of these, when we translate it, it actually doesn't translate exactly. And they're all quite, easily interchangeable terms. So I'll look for the
Guruji, is it Aniruddham?
Aniruddha.
Aniruddham.
Srija, I think the word I was looking for was Ameya.
Aniruddham. Aniruddham.
Niruddha means to stop, to be obstructed. Aniruddha would somebody who cannot be stopped.
Or it could be avarnaniyam. Avarnaniyam is indescribable.
Correct. Varnam varnayati, that is described. So avarnaniyam, yes, that's for sure. So homework for all of us to go into Vishnu Sahasranamam or Lalita Sahasranamam or any Sahasranamam to look for the word, what does describe indescribable Bhagavan. And we can come up with as many names. It doesn't have to be just one. Okay, with that, shall we conclude for the week? Okay, we'll conclude with a short prayer. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Sarvam Srimannarayana Charanara Vindarpanamastu. Thank you so much for your time. Happy Vinayaka Chavithi for everybody.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Ganesh Chaturthi.
Dhanyavadaha, Guruji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ganesh Chaturthi.
Dhanyavadaha.
Dhanyavadaha.